My name is Brian Panisha. I'm with TecVeris, and we are the providers we're a safe, scaled Agile framework member of the partner network at a gold level, as well as a platform partner. We provide DevOps, value stream management, lean Agile transformation, tooling, and advisory services. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our panel, and we'll start with Dr. Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today or watching this recording later, whichever the case may be. My name is Dr. Steve Mayner. I'm the VP of our framework team, a SAFE Fellow and methodologist at Scaled Agile, which means I'm part of the group of folks that write the guidance articles in the Scaled Agile framework. I've been with the company now. I'm in my 9th year. The latest adventure in a 36-year career in IT. And my focus the last 3 years have been around our guidance on the intersection of the explosion of artificial intelligence and how that intersects with the ways of working we talk about in SAFE. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Steve. And Brendan Kelly.
Hey, everybody. My name is Brendan, and I'm a co-founder at Align AI and our head of product, and we help large enterprises accelerate the AI transformation. My background's heavy in the Agile, scaled Agile world, and then been focusing a lot on how to help manage the portfolio of AI products, how to align those to the business needs, and really how to drive that organizational change. So very excited to be here today.
Great. Thanks, Brendan. And so just by way of additional introduction, we have several other folks on from TecVeris. We have Millie Panisha, Devin Corona, and Cindy Clemens. They're going to be helping us facilitate the webinar. So just in terms of housekeeping, Zoom has provided a chat as well as a Q&A. We'll ask folks to kindly put your questions into the Q&A. And the other members of the TecVeris team will facilitate that. So ask questions, feel free to interject. We want to make this very interactive. So just by way of agenda, we're going to I'm going to kick off a panel discussion where we are exactly, as Dr. Steve mentioned, we're at this great intersection of value stream and AI enablement that's occurring and accelerating as we speak. And then we're going to show you some really great hands-on examples of AI accelerated value stream mapping and what that means for our current state as well as the future. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get out of slide mode. And so maybe turning the question first to Dr. Steve, what are you seeing today as some of the current trends in AI and value stream management?
So I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me in that question is how the changes in how people can interact with AI, how that's really going to unlock capabilities that, maybe the current way most people interact with AI is not really unlocking. So for, everybody that's played with a ChatGPT or a Gemini or whatever understands, creating clever prompts. As you have illustrated in your product, nVeris, and others are doing so as well, that creating a much easier user interface that's powered by AI in the background is going to unlock a lot of these powerful capabilities to handle very practical problems like optimizing our value streams. I think that day is on top of us now. When we look 2 to 3 years down the road, I think the interface changes yet again. I think if you look at the arrival of interactive agents, Microsoft just talked about that in their launch event. Sam Altman's talking about training the next model. I think it's going to be much more AI vocal avatar interface and agents to go off and do lots of things to help solve problems that's far beyond what we have now. I think that's very, very reasonable in 2 to 3 years. And Brandon probably sees that much more directly than I do in the work that he's doing.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's such a great time to be working in technology in general, but especially in AI, because so much information and so many ways that we work today require this information back and forth. They require context. There's so much that we do in email, and the internet age has really moved us forward, of course, there, and everything's digitized. And now we have this ability to really add new layers of interaction and new functionality, how to access that, how to share that, how to validate it, all that great stuff. So I think nVeris is a great example of this in the value stream piece. And I think we'll see a lot of organizations reassessing their value streams with a whole new set of opportunities available to us than the traditional send an email, create a PowerPoint, go into a SaaS product and fill out a form. I think we'll see that all evolve how we work together. It's going to be very exciting.
That's great. And so I think maybe going back to Dr. Steve, are you seeing particular industry examples that are either ripe for AI and value stream, or present a use case maybe for the customer in how we kind of take this to the next level?
Yeah, so what's really interesting about AI, and one of the reasons that we decided to, I think for the first time in our history in SAFE, really provide guidance around a particular technology. A lot of really cutting edge technologies, whether you think about blockchain or 3D printing or IoT, work great in some industries, and other industries maybe don't care so much. AI is different. So to answer your question, it's really every industry that we're looking at right now is being impacted, and many are exploiting the technology. Some are further ahead than others. Where I'm just thinking of finance, healthcare, insurance, were early adopters, even entertainment, telecommunications, automotive. That's probably one that a lot of people can relate to. If you just think about capabilities that are inside your vehicle experience today, many people know the capabilities of a Tesla, but as an example, but you're seeing those capabilities being driven into features in other manufacturers as well. So I think some of those that were early adopters long before generative AI came along are the ones that are very comfortable in this space and are the ones that are right to really leverage the capabilities that are focused on value stream management, probably sooner than those that are maybe in the late adopter category.
So I did. So in one of our prep calls with Dr. Steve, we talked about the car buying experience. So just like on the cooking show, we sort of got something in the oven that we can start with. I'm going to go ahead and pull up what many of us can relate to. I know, my last purchase experience, we had toddlers at the time. And we were in the car dealership for what felt like much longer period of time than it took to close on our house. So with the AI mapping, I went ahead and just, we can probably all relate to this as a value stream. And think of a value stream, for those that might be new to the term, is an inward focused process of a company that might represent an inward view of what a customer's experience or customer journey is in getting value, right? We show up at the car dealership and, we go through lots of sales and options, but when we really want to make that purchase, it could be a painful process, right? And I relate to sort of after being tired and there for several hours and the kids are getting cranky and hungry, then I'm like sort of sequestered into this back room where I'm vulnerable and it's high pressure to add insurance and options and underbody coding. So that inspired us, Dr. Steve, to kind of look at that. And so what we want to do here is let's go ahead and reimagine this. So I'll just jump into this experience. Let's go ahead and create a future state scenario. And here the AI is maybe giving us some potential insights, right? We could do something a little bit out there and sort of gamify this and stretch our thinking and maybe apply what would it look like 100 years in the future. And it probably wouldn't be a car at that point. It would be some kind of a hovercraft. But let's maybe look at what would be potentially with 1 year's advanced technology improvements. And I think what's so important about on-ramping an organization into value stream management and even AI assisted value stream management is we want to unencumber teams to try to come together and collaborate, in a very manual way. So we still keep the teams in the loop, but we want them to maybe come out of their day-to-day, their functional groups, their silos, and use this as a gamified way to reimagine that experience. So we could certainly see the experience that we're all used to, but now here's a future state. Greet the customer with a digital kiosk, understand their needs, present personalized vehicle options on an AR display, schedule can conduct a test drive, potentially with VR simulation. Let them have a more streamlined purchase experience, that would improve their ability to control the interaction and accelerate their journey, get to a better purchase, and hopefully streamline the actual efficiency that occurs inside the company process. So this is a great example. And maybe Dr. Steve, you have to add.
And Brian, what I like about what your interface does here is, so let's imagine how we got to this point. Maybe there's, and if you had this experience, I shared that I had just gotten my latest vehicle recently. And of course, they all wanted you to complete the feedback surveys, right? What was your experience like? So let's say that this was prompted by, we've gotten a lot of feedback experience from customers that they just hate the buying process. And so imagine that they're having this conversation with this direct customer feedback, and you feed that into the prompt of how would this value stream look if, I think in our conversation, I mentioned, I want a buying experience with no humans. I mean, there's just not a purpose. I lease my vehicles. I know what I want coming in. I just want to get the best rate. I want to get, everything. And so you could feed that in as a prompt. I think you played with that while we were on the call last time. And I really like the way this visualizes what that could look like in an interface. It's very different than if I just took this same query to, pick your LLM. It's going to give me a lot of interesting text that doesn't necessarily help me visualize what that process could look like. And if you think about the whole value stream mapping exercise, having that visualization, I think would be really critical for a group of people, in decision-making positions, really think through, we're making some significant potential changes to our business model. So having that and being able to move things and play with things and tell the model, yeah, I like this, but we really don't like this part of it, and have it quickly regenerate. I mean, I've run many value stream mapping activities and workshops, and this would be pretty phenomenal kind of capability to have for those teams that are doing that.
So as you were speaking, I just went ahead and chatted, let's, have it be an at-home experience, contactless delivery vehicle location. So this was simply the chat. And I think what we've made is anybody that's done traditional value stream mapping, it can be high cost. It's, in some cases, you're educating people on the process. You're working off of stickies or other tools, Miro boards, murals, and it can be sometimes uncomfortable to get started. So this generating future scenarios, it's a great way to work back, but it's very inexpensive. We could toss these out and reimagine them. We could do 10 scenarios and vote on or select the one that we like best, and then work back and what are the enablements that we need to do to make that happen. So I like this one quite a bit. It took the prompt as really removing any of the contact or having to go to a separate location. You just go from A to Z, and your car is delivered to you, the buyer, right? Probably made more profit for the company, and made that customer satisfaction go higher.
Absolutely. And what you mentioned, something I think is really important for anybody that's ever run these workshops, the ability to have breakout groups and really get creative, different creative approaches. amongst a group of people that are brainstorming this, and then have the tool help facilitate bringing those back together to find the consensus. I think is super powerful. It's a really painful, just using manual stickies. It's a really painful, lengthy process, or it can be, depending on the group of people that you're working with. So I think that's an incredibly powerful feature.
Great point. So I do want to turn it back over to Brendan. And so maybe we'll pop out of this example. Let me go back and we can create a new one. But perhaps, Brendan, think of something in your world, maybe a recent customer experience. I know you've done a lot of work in healthcare. Let's just iterate on one. And then I do want to pause too, if anybody has questions, Cindy, chime in or feel free to respond to those, and Devin as well. But Brendan, back over to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think if we want to go to one in healthcare, one that I always like to do is, this is actually the first value stream exercise I went through back in the day when I worked at Ohio State's Medical Center, was how do we improve the experience for somebody going through the emergency room? That's a very scary time. It's a very uncertain time. It can also be very boring because you wait for hours. So I think that's a great one that I know a lot of hospital systems are working on. How do we improve that experience for folks that are going through our emergency departments?
Okay, let's go ahead and chat that one in. Improved emergency room for a patient, and we'll just go here and say a clinical treatment. And I'll add that a lot of times you can start with a current typical, right? So I think we can probably, unfortunately, all relate to this. Patient registration, initial triage, vital signs, assignment to ER bed, primary medical evaluation, diagnostic testing, specialist if needed. So yeah, I mean, we're going ahead and implementing that, and then they're going to be discharged or admitted to the hospital. So this seems very typical. What I'll do here off of this example is we'll just get right into mapping. So we keep, teams and people and collaborators in the loop. It's not meant to replace. The AI does not replace people collaborating, but what it does is it removes a lot of the barriers and frictions that enable that collaboration to happen. So I can just, I don't know, Brendan, your experience, what did it take to prep to even get to this level? Like, what was the lead time?
Oh, it was a lot. It's always tricky too, because you need to get everybody speaking the same terminology. And I think what we're seeing here is one of the big benefits of AI is that it gives us something to react to, right? We don't need to start with a blank slate. We don't need to kind of hash it out initially and spend those hours that it would take to get to this point. We can start here and then react and say, tweak, modify, change this, rather than coming in and trying to start from scratch, build it all the way out.
Very cool. So I'm not going to suggest that we all do this, but we could reimagine this in a future state. And I think, unlike the automotive experience, Dr. Steve, humans will still need healthcare and some kind of emergency room care in 100 years in the future. So I'll save that. We'll pull up on that in a little bit. But what I did want to showcase here is just how effective we want to also talk about how this gets us to a collaboration point. So I'm going to start a collaboration session. And what we're going to do here is, this is sort of the other piece. We have the AI acceleration to jumpstart, but now everybody on the webinar, and we're not going to break anything. That's the beauty of it. This is a game. We can iterate or play until we have something that we really want to take action on. So for this example, you can just open up and use your phone and just come on in and go ahead and launch yourself right into the collaboration session. So imagine you are part of that the Ohio State ER, yes, very important. And we'll give folks collaborating a chance to come on in. And then what I'll ask is anybody on your mobile device now, you can change the orders of the steps. You can help reframe the step. Maybe some of you have more clinical knowledge. Come on in. Or just to do like a little X marks the spot, I'll just go ahead and I'll just say added step, right? And this is where now we've taken the collaboration, and for those folks, many of us, we've all done this on stickies in a big room. Well, now we can do it in person, hybrid, remote, and on any device.
Yeah, and for the healthcare, for the folks that work in healthcare, they know how hard it is to pull surgeons, medical staff, nurses out of that front line to be able to do this, but it's so critical for the operational improvement. So I think that's great for them too, not only time savings, but also being able to fit it into those crazy shift schedules, which are so challenging.
Awesome. See folks getting some steps added. So the UI is waiting. Interesting. There's a lot of waiting when you get to healthcare. So awesome, whoever added that. Added step patient arrives by ambulance, and I'll just like help swarm. Like we would go ahead and maybe pull that forward into the process. Whoever added that, I think, yeah, that's a really great add. So this is that, hey, we're swarming on this. We've sort of probably lost our titles and our seniority levels. Just kind of becomes a fun way. It's almost like an agile team just moving stickies around on a Kanban board. So outside of that, you'll notice the AI injected functional groups. So what's really great here is we could, and this is just an example, but we can add functional groups. And what's important for that is we can then present a heat map. We can see what is the distribution of different functions and the handoffs between steps in the value stream. I did one with a company, and it was strategy was involved at the beginning and at the end, but they never had an opportunity to collaborate, provide feedback along the way. Maybe there's something similar in this healthcare example. But another thing that it does is when we go into scoring, and I'm going to kick us into scoring mode, this is where we are capturing what is the average wait time, non-productive time, non-value added time, and what is the processing time, what's the actual productive effort time. And the thing that I'll just say about those two metrics, and we'll look at metrics in a little bit, is most organizations spend upwards of 50% or worse of the time, the total time it takes for something to flow through a value stream, just spent waiting for handoffs or approvals. And so it's really easy to score that here and get a cross-functional perspective. So we don't have to score right now. I can show you guys out of the, some other value streams that we scored, but everybody in your mobile device can now score. And the thing that I'll point out is it'll ask you, what's your functional group? So we might, I'll use software development. The QA group may have a very different take on what the software engineering team's performance metrics are. And we could start to see some divergence, because those are probably good groups to talk to each other about how to improve their handoffs and come up with enablements. And the tooling lets us do that. What I'd like to do first is let's jump to that future state scenario. So I think we can all relate to this. Let's go ahead and let's just go ahead for grins and giggles here. Let's see what our healthcare emergency room experience might be 100 years in the future. So patient arrives by autonomous ambulance. automated patient registration via biometric scan, immediate virtual triage via AI, real-time health data collection through wearable devices. So telemetry of, I think about my Apple Watch going to my doctor, right, or a research study. Well, they'd know your full blood pressure history. That's awesome. That can make a big difference. Assessment by AI-driven systems, vital signs monitoring through IoT, assignment to ER bed based on predictive analytics. But that's probably some flow optimization happening there. Primary medical evaluation through telemedicine, specialist consultation via virtual reality, diagnostic testing using nanotechnology. Interesting. So they're maybe injecting some nanobots to, we're getting into the realm of Star Trek here. Automated treatment plan formulation, robotic nurses, continuous patient monitoring, discharge planning, or admissions to hospital were powered by AI. We even, let's just try this, reimagine this, this as it would have been in the in the year 1700. Not that we would iterate from there, but the AI is pretty smart. We'll see if we break it. Devin's our nVeris architect. Okay, well,
And Brian, while we're having fun looking at the 1700s and 100 years in the future, there are some questions in the Q&A. I don't know if this is a good time to take those questions, or if you'd like us to read those off, or if you want to come back to those.
absolutely. Yeah, let's go ahead and start taking some questions.
All right. Would you like me to read those out?
Yeah.
Okay. It's really interesting to know the value stream mapping example in healthcare emergency context. Similarly, could you please give some documentation with a few more use cases for healthcare organizations so that I can learn and try to propose the AI-initiated solution to the target organizations?
That's great. I think what we'll do is I'll include that in our group response. So we'll include some additional healthcare examples. And that's very near to my heart. I spent about 15 years in the healthcare space. We see that as how do we improve society's outcomes? How do we, you might be a regional healthcare center and you're highly constrained resources, as we see in rural areas. So optimizing value streams would certainly help people. So that's a great question. So we'll send some examples.
Yep. Brian, I too have worked in healthcare a long time, and I happen to be married to a nurse. So I can tell you one that I have personally been motivated by just watching what she goes through in the hospice industry, and the amount of documentation time they have to do as compared to patient contact time. It's really terrible, and it's an industry-wide issue. And so, good AI comes in play two ways. One, reimagining what that process could look like, while still meeting all of the HIPAA and other regulatory requirements that they have to meet. They can't make it go away. But AI is also being used to change how that documentation is captured. And so, yeah, there are an unending number of examples in any part of the process in various forms of the healthcare market that you could absolutely see this being applied to.
That's a great response. That's near and dear to me because I've taken two, family members, parents and grandparents through that process. So anything to streamline that and streamline some of all the paperwork, certainly essential paperwork, that would have really helped the experience that I went through. Any other questions? And I think maybe as we're going through the questions, I'd love to show some of the metrics, because I think one of the things that, and I'll quote Karen Martin. I was on a webinar with her about a month ago. And Karen Martin, for those that aren't familiar, I almost want to reach over and grab the book off my shelf. And Mike Osterling wrote really what is essentially the Bible for value stream mapping. Certainly work before that in Womack and Jones, and a lot of work all the way back to Deming, and but really put value stream mapping on the map, no pun intended. And she described in 40 years, and I'm paraphrasing her, in 40 years of working to help organizations optimize, she hasn't yet seen something more tangible as a method for building lasting change than value stream management. And the essence that why to try to capture it? So we're looking at a manufacturing process, any kind of an industrial company in their ERP system. But what's really important is, how do we take this theoretical map and this AI generated map and make it very tangible from the standpoint of where should we focus our very constrained resources? We're not going to boil the ocean. We're not going to improve everything overnight. We're not going to do this big bang wholesale transformation that's usually met with, we're constrained on resources, and we have to keep the business operating. We have to keep that ER operating. But what this report is that you're seeing is, this is showing us step 7 in this process has the highest level of bottleneck. Now, whether that comes out of the float time or the wait time, total float time, wait time, process time, the efficiency of, or the ratio of the total time to the actual value added time or processing time, or it's a dimension of what percentage of time does something flow through this state requiring rework, or to go back to a previous step or start over. This is sort of a vector. It says, let's combine all those into a formula that Devin came up with called expected flow time, which factors in the percentage of time you have to start that work over.
Brian, since we're here, we have another question about flow metrics. And they're asking, can we integrate it with other tools, example Jira, to get the, excuse me, to get the flow metrics?
The answer is today, no, but it's in our roadmap. So we are on our enterprise editions going to be availing the ability, and I didn't get into enablements, but as you're generating your enablers to those constraints or bottlenecks in the flow, you're using, just like you saw with the AI acceleration, you're going to be able to use that to generate enablements. And what would the future state be? But it's work backwards from an outcome in metrics. What would move the needle for investment? And now let's take really smart cross-functional people from different functional areas to generate those top enablers that can be realistically implemented in a 3 to 6 month time horizon, and then come back and reevaluate those against the financial or performance trends that we show here. But to quickly answer the question, the ability to take those enablers and import them into Jira or an Azure DevOps or a Raleigh, those are all in our roadmap.
And I just want to add a thought here too. A lot of teams right now are answering the question, like, how can we use AI? And I think views like that are so important to be able to say, really which problem should we focus on? We don't want to boil the ocean and everything that we could do with AI, but if we can really scope it in and target in like that materials receiving piece or the rework, like whatever is our most critical lever to pull on with AI, that increases the success of those projects, the willingness of business to come back and do future projects with us around AI. So I think that's really critical for teams that are looking at how to integrate AI into the organization today.
That's a really, really great point, Brendan. And we're working on going from future state scenarios to consolidating those and then capturing the essentially, the 5 whys or the Ikiwasha fishbone diagram, so we get to some root cause analysis, and then be able to have the AI say, okay, we just broke up into maybe 3 working groups to focus on what would solve the problem. What would those metrics be? But the piece here, and I apologize, we don't have good demo data, I just realized clicking into it, is we actually know the output cost, the cost of running the value stream and the number of units that it produces in a year, like how many patient visits, and what the monetary value is of that, not to be precise and follow GAAP standards, but to show orders of magnitude or trend. And we literally can then say, when you apply an enablement, and I can jump into that UI in a second, it asks you, well, what did you spend to do that enablement? How much time did it take? So you can see the new metrics of the value stream as an economic opportunity, and then you can begin to capture the hardest thing to do in the world of lean and value stream is to get business stakeholder buy-in to making investments in the process improvements. They tend to over-focus on what you're producing and less on how do we innovate our process in how we're producing. So that's sort of the other value proposition, not to overuse the term, of what we're trying to help teams better get justification of business investment in enablements and improvements of a lean or an agile process or a value stream. So where can we see that? Just jump into enablements. This is an example, I think goes back to the previous question, Cindy, of the attendee, is this would be what we would incorporate into the workflow tools, such as Atlassian and Jira. And when it's actually implemented, it's going to ask you, well, how much did you invest in that? And what was the investment in time? Now, I will say this, our thesis is over time, the AI model is going to be able to look at the history of enablements in your space and help you apply what are potential enablement ideas based on the training of the model. So that's another roadmap area that we're working on. So this is an example of what's our demand, what are our cost factors, what's the budget of the value stream, and what's the annual revenue of the value stream. Then based on performance change on 2D scenarios or actual implemented scenarios, we can begin to then say what's the monetization or business case for these enablements and doing more enablements.
We have another question about nVeris. Is there a way to define parameters about the product, market, art, solution train, etc., for the AI to consider to suggest a future state?
I can take that one. So whenever you're going through and creating a future state value stream, you're given the option to either click one of the pre-configured prompts, or you can type in your own prompts. So Mauricio, if you wanted to go in and add details about what the product was or the size of the team or the art, you could just type that into your future state prompting, and the AI would respond accordingly. And I think the great thing about it is it's really easy to prompt something and regenerate it. So I would say just go into nVeris, sign up for the free account, and you can just try out any of the different scenarios and parameters you want.
And maybe let's go ahead and drop the nVeris.com into the Q&A. So if anybody wants to come in, you can begin chatting and collaborating with the AI, and even sharing a QR code and mapping with a team on a no-cost account.
It has been dropped in the chat.
Yep. Sorry, Cindy. Yeah, so it's in the chat and also in, there were 3 other questions about how to sign up for nVeris, and I answered those in the Q&A as well. Pasted the pricing tab in there. But just for everyone who didn't see that, you can sign up for an Explorer account. There's no like 30-day maximum time. There's no set time limit on that Explorer account. So you're welcome to sign up for that and give it a try.
So the healthcare question that came in, ask it a lot of questions, and you could even share a QR code and put a team of your clinicians or your stakeholders into a collaboration session. We try to replicate the free and easy sticky experience, but with structured data and of course the financials, the economics, and the augmentation with the AI. Great. Well, do we want to try another scenario? We are 43 minutes in. We've got 17 minutes left in our time box, and I do have a couple other questions for our panelists, but.
Hey, Brian, one thing really quick, that what you just showed, I think, if anybody didn't catch it, there's something really powerful in there. If you, even before it's connected to all of your systems and pulls in the data automatically, we're not able to do that in those sessions today when we're using stickies anyway. So there is some preparation. You got to get the right people in the room and have them bring the right information. But as you're looking at finding where the real pain is and where the real opportunity to shorten time to market, improve customer satisfaction in terms of your ability to resolve the bottlenecks and improve that customer experience, inevitably doing that, relieving that bottleneck is going to happen because of some investment in systems that will be applied to that problem, right, to resolve it. Sometimes it's with people and process and decision making, but a lot of times it's with supporting systems. Well, now you've got a great mechanism to say, well, if we can, what if we were able to reduce that long materials receiving process by 50% as an example, or even better, what would the cost savings of that time, what would be the improved financial picture? So if your financial stakeholders at the table can model that out, okay, well now you've got a very quick and dirty kind of ROI in terms of looking at different solutions that, okay, we're gonna have to invest X to buy a system, build a system, whatever that's going to result in that long lead time being eliminated. Well, okay, well that system costs X, the savings is Y, and now you can start reasoning through the alternatives with that financial lens, and your business stakeholders, that's where they live and breathe. Much less so in our sort of agile lingo world. So if you can bring those conversations to the forefront in terms of getting them to make decisions around how they're going to solve their biggest problems in the value stream, and how quickly that could, whatever that investment is, can pay for itself. I mean, that's exactly the kind of question executives or conversation executives want to have, and they need, if they've got that information at their fingertips, they're going to be able to do things in a completely different way than they're doing them right now. So we get out of the project beauty pageant mode and into, let's get real data that drives our decision making here. So I just want to make sure everybody catches that, the power of that feature.
I'm really happy that you so articulately framed that, Dr. Steve, because that's been one of our biggest challenges as a safe implementer. It's how do you get people to see the importance of that investment? Not that you're going to go back to finance and you're exact down to the dollar, right? But if you're in the right ballpark on these metrics, You don't have to be super precise. And if you're in the right ballpark on these are the top 2 or 3 bottlenecks that we have, can we just improve one thing? And what would that potential ROI be? That's a very powerful, that's part of our thesis of why we're doing this. But I'll go back and listen to the recording because I think you put it very succinctly.
And I just wanted to share one tidbit I heard on a call last week. We were talking with an advisor who does AI inside of a large automotive. And when he was talking about how to make that business case, he said, look for 10x, right? Especially with AI, like there are 10x returns inside of your organization and nobody pokes hole in 10x, right? Like there's a really clear business case on that. So that's where I think being able to show this value, being able to show, like visualize it and brainstorm opportunities, you can find more of those 10x projects because they are now feasible with AI and all the new technology available to us in the enterprise.
We will certainly, and I would tune in, I would encourage folks to continue in the webinar series because we're going to be unveiling more features around business case, summary of the delta of opportunity by incrementally enabling some of the value streams. But I think one of the ones, and Millie and I were just talking about this the other day, is we always had our best results. People don't come to us and say, our strategy is to be agile. It's unfortunate, I wish they would. Or our strategy is to implement value stream management in our organization. They come to us because they're having delivery challenges, they're having customer satisfaction challenges, and inherently in any organization at scale, there's a lot of specialized departments that, you know, if you're a hammer, you're always going to treat every problem as a nail. And value stream is one of the, I'll call it the democratizers within an organization. You know, Dr. Steve, Brendan, everybody on a TecVeris side, we all know that people tend to lose their positions and titles when they're in that magic of a PI planning event or they're in a hackathon-like event. With value stream, you know, that is so fundamentally intertwined into lean that it's part of the roadmap. It's part of the roadmap to form a stream-aligned, you know, looking at team topologies, right? How do we organize our teams so that we minimize handoffs? We minimize the wait time. Yeah, this is a, you know, an organization, we have one organization we're working with, and it literally takes nearly a half a year to go from an order to finding a slot in the production process. And if something changes with a global supplier, or, you know, we're seeing labor rates and tax rates, the manual effort and brute force it takes to get different groups to come to the table and collaborate on that is really hard to do. And so most organizations we find are back on their heels, just getting what they're building out the door. They don't have the luxury of how do we incrementally improve, right? Using the kata continuous improvement or the Kaizen continuous improvement that we learned back in the days of like lean and lean manufacturing. We have to invest in this. It's not optional. And as AI begins to disrupt and enhance many of our industries, I think it's very important that we be able to leverage these tools. So I think in future webinars, we'll be demonstrating some of that. How do we make the financial business case? And how do we even do it with like a slide, like a calculator? Like what will happen if we improve our flow time by this amount and let the AI generate a scenario for that? And then as a team, you can collaboratively work off of how do we enable that, but you're looking at something you could position as a business case because it's giving you a dial that says this is the economic benefit, you know, in a panel. So those are some things that we have in our backlog right now, because it's how do we get leaders to engage in this is probably the key piece.
And I love talking about using AI to help people use more AI, because I think it's you can see the value of compressing these cycles, right? We don't need to go off and do some analysis and some what if. We can leverage AI to even, like you're mentioning, modeling out those business case impacts. And that just really helps this collaboration and compressing that time that it takes for us to get the next rev, the plan, the strategy, or the actual AI in production. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, you had asked us one of the questions about what the future holds. And you already see this being projected, and it's not hard to imagine that as the technology progresses. So let's imagine ourselves in a future state where you've got a tool like this, but the AI behind it has access to all of our internal data. It knows it's in our procurement system. It's in our, whatever our labor tracking system is. It's in our work management. And you give it a problem on one of those steps, and you say, that materials receiving is way out of, that's way out of what should be standard in the industry. Go diagnose the most the biggest reasons behind that timeline, tapping into everything. You could even give it access to your email system, your Slack system. So it's looking at the interactions of people as part of the data that it's looking at. And by the way, those experiments are already being run by other folks that we have in our community. So what it brings back then, I think, has the potential to say, based on the real data, that here are your top 5 reasons why that step in the value stream is so far off. And it could be completely unrelated problems, right? There could be, you've got one particular supplier who's not meeting their commitments, not delivering according to what should be an industry standard. You've also got a flaw in your value stream design in terms of how work is flowing. And so maybe there's an organizational design problem. You've also got this other issue, right? So, I mean, think about the human effort that it would take to go access all of those data sources, find the patterns, relate it to that one step, and then formulate recommended solutions for how to resolve it. That would take months and an untold number of labor hours. In the future, as you kind of imagine that kind of capability, you can ask that question and get an answer back within seconds, literally, and not waste the time of trying to solve a mystery. Right? You can focus the effort on the things that are going to solve the problem, and it's driven by data. And that to me is what Brendan said, that the excitement about what the future holds. And there's risks too. We got to manage that. But you know what, Brendan, to your point, we can use AI to help manage the risks of AI. We're already seeing that happen today, right? So yes, you've got to be thoughtful. You got to be responsible. You got to think about what you're giving it access to, and do you have the right protections in place for both security and privacy and all those other things. But none of this is, rocket science. The technology is on a trajectory to absolutely be there. Hopefully within all of our careers, where we'd see that kind of capability unleashed inside the organization. And having a front end like this to guide that process as agents on the back end are collecting all the data needed to solve those problems and take you to decisions within seconds instead of months. That's where we're going to unlock so much market value that it's hard. I think it's hard for us to really get our heads wrapped around the potential.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I think the large language models like ChatGPT, what's available through those and leveraging that, there's so much solution opportunity baked into that that's so easily accessible now. It's really unprecedented to have that level of solutioning or really intelligence available inside of like normal workflows, like what we're seeing here. So I think it's going to be really awesome to see all the different areas that manifests in.
Yeah, I think what strikes me is we as a global society, I think we talk in terms of profit, right? We have to put food on the table and pay the bills, but we have so many challenges in our society that we need to augment, we need to accelerate our collaboration. We need to find the features in our data that can be brought front and center. A really quick story, and we're going to wrap soon, is I was just on with someone who spent a lot of time in the healthcare biomedical device space. And she said at one point they were trying to do a purchase for something that was much needed to implement a required improvement. And they were organized into release trains and running the scaled agile framework. And they had to go to a purchase approver as the stopping point to get more resources. I think it was equipment to enhance their CI/CD capability in the cyber-physical medical device space. And they were a third-party outsourced provider that had no knowledge or understanding and had no impetus, or they weren't measured on approving things. And it took months and months to get one small improvement in play, right? It was a very unintended bureaucratic type approach. And, I think what we're seeing today is we don't have the luxury of time. Opportunity, will disrupt us. If we're not the disruptor in putting some of these things into place, then we leave ourselves open to be disrupted. So I really enjoyed this, our panelists today. I want to humbly thank Dr. Steve for joining us. Brendan, for you coming out. I believe you're in very late time zone in Spain now, but taking time out of your AI company to spend the time with us today. And I really want to thank the attendees. We're going to have another session I think we skipped June, and we're going to have another session in July. Same time, last Wednesday of the month. And we're going to send out a recording as well as some of the transcript and follow-up questions.
Appreciate the invitation. It's been a great conversation and great to connect with all of you, and to you as well, Brendan.
Yep, definitely. Really appreciate the conversation today. I always like talking AI and product, and this is a beautiful AI product. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you on the next session in July.